scholarly research uses a kind of a common low risk formula. And that's fine because it normally leads to good results. And that means first, academics situate themselves in a specific disciplinary field and then look at an issue in the field from a particular angle, for in political science, European public policy making. Then they look out, scan through the most recent literature and find some argument that can be challenged. Then they gather some empirical evidence and then write up their story and hope and argue that the new evidence put forward ought the author's intellectual sparring partners to change their argument. And this traditional or low risk strategy of academic writing leads frequently to very good results and robust results. That's why, as PhD supervisors, we are normally telling our PhD students to follow that rule and that approach. But as you have said in your comments, this book is not following that approach. The underlying pattern of our book is very different. Very different in terms of both its broad interdisciplinary focus and also its bold and thus very risky intellectual ambition. And that is, of course, no coincidence because it is an example of the so-called high risk, high gain approach that is demanded by the European Research Council. And the European Research Council is only sponsoring these kind of risky endeavors because they think only if you risk something, you can actually achieve paradigm shifting breakthroughs.
The research project culminating in this excellent book today has been able to shed light in nuanced ways on the way in which the EU governs its member states, moving beyond simple categorizations, benefiting from frameworks in international HRM scholarship. The research project has benefited from the interdisciplinary nature of HRM and employment relations, and I think particularly the very rich tradition of industrial relations scholarship, which has provided a historical and theoretical grounding that I think predates some current discussions on governance. While these insights from industrial relations have been important, international HRM also enabled the team to refine state centered perspectives on EU governance, offering a sophisticated understanding of this new economic governance regime and the mechanisms and the dynamics which drive it forward. This work advances our academic understanding, but also has significant implications for how we think about governance in the EU and beyond, challenging us to move beyond conventional frameworks and to consider broader and more complex dynamics at play in modern governance systems. My warmest congratulations to Roland, Sabina, Darragh, Imre, and Vincenzo on this exceptional achievement, and thank you.
The European Research Council, which funded the project which we're celebrating the launch of the book of today, has really raised significantly the opportunity for fundamental, challenging, risky research, not only in the STEM disciplines, which have historically been more or less well funded, but also in the arts, humanities, and social sciences. And Roland Erne, who I give great credit to this for, was one of the early adopters of the idea of going after these major grants to raise the scale, the scope, the ambition of research. And we take great pride in Roland's project, which was funded as a consolidator grant in 2017, paved the way for at least one further project in the College of Business, Roland's being the first, but there's also been a very wide range of projects funded across the arts, humanities, and social science at UCD by the European Research Council, in addition to a wide range of projects funded in the STEM disciplines. So it's fantastic to be at the point with this project where we're celebrating the book?
So first of all, theoretically, I think, at least in political science, there's a dominance of approaches who just focus on the form of integration. Will there be more European integration? Will there be less? And what is often overlooked is what is actually the social purpose underpinning integration. And I think here the book makes a major advance by focusing on this commodifying versus decommodifying of these various prescriptions. Yeah, so we understand what is underpinning European integration actually. Form is not forgotten. It's linked to the way of how transnational corporations operate, but the shift towards focusing on content, social purpose of integration is a major advance theoretically. Empirically, I think there's a very clear analysis of all the various prescriptions since the global financial crisis in 2008. Yeah, and I think the conclusion is there's an overarching commodifying script dominating European integration. There are some decommodifying descriptions, correct, but ultimately, as the book illustrates, they are subordinated to this overall commodification, free market focused kind of direction.
It is written in a very punchy and engaging style. So it makes it a great read. And also the way they've brought together the labour politics with new economic governance makes it just something that is really fun to read for a newcomer, as well as people who've been around the block on macroeconomic governance and so on as well.
What I think is what you reveal is a major contradiction at play, and that is that the new economic governance regime has been adopted under the banner of more economic convergence. That the EU economies have to grow and converge towards each other is an official treaty-based community goal. It has been spelled out in the Single European Act. Yet the adopted crisis responses, they did exactly the opposite. And we've seen that with the introduction of the euro. The promise was not fulfilled, so the divides got even became bigger. We have a north-south, east-west divide within Europe. And then when the 2008 crisis hit, the divides were even further opening up, and also social inequality has widened. And in your book, you actually demonstrate that how the transfer of employment and a range of social policies, all of which has been justified with the rhetoric of convergence and competitiveness, have deepened this long-standing economic polarization further.
Ronald, I want to congratulate you and all the authors for two reasons in particular. I hardly ever pick up a book that I recognize trade unions in. And in this book, I really did. I recognized us. I saw that you were recognizing that trade unions are active agents of change. And that is very, very well recorded. And I want to thank all of you. And indeed, when I was coming here, Jan William, the General Secretary of EPSU, said to be sure and thank all of you. I know he's already done that already, but he said to be sure and thank all of you again. The second reason to congratulate you is I hardly ever pick up a book that says, and so what? And what should we do about it? And it's very clear, as Kamala Harris would say, what the big learning for me from this was, when we fight, we win. Because you can look down the change that was that we were successful in securing. You can plot a direct line between active demonstration on the street, the preparation of legal arguments, the making of those legal arguments, the preparation of law, the campaigning to get it, and the change.
Reading through the text, it's a magnificent piece of work. I think it's so rich in terms of the work that's been undertaken, spanning policy areas, spanning multiple countries, spanning multiple sectors, that I think we could probably spend about a week here teasing out various implications of the work. Certainly one theme that did strike me as particularly interesting as a non-expert reading the book is the very interesting tension between a technocratic cabal in the EU pushing for greater integration and using vertical mechanisms to achieve that, and yet that putting pressure on politics and political parties within the EU, causing perhaps a centrifugal and a centrifugal force kind of clashing there. And that's quite an interesting theme, which I think actually is something which is very, very rarely picked up on by the mainstream media.
So we try to create with our research also a bit of public awareness, and count also on you to pass it on and hopefully have an impact in our lives, because I think Europe is important, and it's too important to leave it to the nagheads. We risk to become ourselves, but hopefully we didn't so much in the last 6 years. Thanks very much.